Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Yasin Aslam. So this is our live special today after our victory yesterday at the Supreme Court against Uber. And we have our full London team on this call today. So I'm just going to bring them on one by one to introduce everyone. So if you could kindly share this video, there's a link at the top for the WhatsApp group. If you could share it in the WhatsApp group, on any Facebook group, if you could kindly like it, and just if you can't hear us or anything, just post a comment. So far I see we have Rihan from Paris. MashaAllah, Assalamu alaikum, brother. Thank you for joining us. We have Ross, Allison. So we got quite a few guys. But anyway, let's just start the session. So first of all, I'm just going to bring James. If you could unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
Hi, hello everybody. Hello Yasin. Congratulations as Yasin and Aslam v Uber victory. James Farr, nice to see you.
Hi, this is Mehmet from London. Nice to meet you guys.
Hi, I'm Zamir from London. Nice to meet you guys.
Zamir. Hadi, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Hi, this is Hadi from the London committee.
Hi, I'm Kirsty from the London committee.
Hi, I'm Charlene from London committee.
Yeah, so that's it, guys. So we've got all our full team here today. So hopefully it's going to be a little bit longer than normal, a long session. So we got James Farrow, who's the General Secretary. We have Mehmed, who is also from our London committee team. We have Zamir, who's the Heathrow rep. We have Charlene, who's from the London committee for the Vice Chair. We had Hardy, who's the Chair for London branch. And we also have Kirsty, first time joining us. She's the Women Officer for ADCU. So over to James, man. James, how do you feel? Excited? Delighted?
Yeah, I'm delighted, relieved, tired. It was a great victory, Yasin, wasn't it? But better. I think the victory was better than we could have hoped, because there's two questions the court had to ask. One is, are we workers? Yes. Then the next question is, well, when are we workers? So it could be for all the time you're logged in. That's what the lower courts ruled. Or for just when you POB. And the court said it's all the time we're logged in. There will be some detail around multi-apping, but that's, we got the maximum we could have gotten from that ruling. And I think the other thing that's notable about it is that it was a unanimous ruling, 6-0. There was no alternative analysis. Not one justice out of 6 on the bench could come up with a dissenting opinion to kind of justify Uber. Basically, nobody on the bench agreed that anything that Uber has done for the last 9 years in London. So great, resounding victory.
Yeah, no, it's just amazing. I mean, I think last time when we were at the High Court, one of the judge that time, I mean, we didn't have, we had 2 judges vote in our favor, but this time it's amazing to see 6 justices actually vote, actually turn around and just, it was amazing. It's mind blowing. And I just want to say, we have a lot of guys on today, especially a lot of my friends and families watching this today. I'm just grateful for all of you guys messaging me, sending me personal messages, phone calls, and it's just so difficult for me to take each and every one of your calls, and same for James and the rest of the team. We're being bombarded with calls, but we're still here. We're not ignoring you guys, and hopefully, over the coming days, you'll see more and more of us back again. But who's gonna go first? James, you want to continue, or should we bring one of the other guys in first?
Well, let's bring some of the other guys in. Let's get some opinions. I'd love to hear some questions and reactions, see what people have to say about it. I think it was such a whirlwind yesterday, Uber's reaction was kind of interesting. We can talk about that in a minute. But it'd be just good. We had far too much to say yesterday, so I'll be really interested to hear what anybody else has to say and to answer any questions or just participate in the debate about it all.
Yeah. So just to start it off, so we got Robert from Scotland watching, yeah. And he got a question, first of all, to be helpful for you guys to explain in simple terms what this win means for self-employed status going forward, so they could embrace it as a victory, because he don't understand. And at the same time, it's not just him. I'm sure, like some of, I'll let Kirsty or let's have Hardy first, yeah, explain like what Uber's saying to the drivers. Then I'll pass it back to you, James, if you could talk about it, yeah.
Okay.
Hardy. What's Uber's message?
Yeah. Well, Uber's message, I mean, yesterday they came out very strong after the win, and the message was that this does not apply to all the drivers. It only applies to the drivers who actually were on the platform in 2016, which I believe it's rubbish. It applies to all the drivers, and this, I hope James will actually emphasize this more.
Okay, so it's is it over to me? Yeah. Okay. So the question,
this more to the drivers.
To emphasize whether it's just a group of 16 or more, is that right? Yeah. So well, the short answer is, of course it applies to everybody. Absolutely applies to everybody. And I'll explain why for a minute. But we need to split in part. Does the law apply to you in this way? And does this really affect you? Yes, it does. And then the next question is, how do you access any kind of relief, remedy, compensation, and whatnot? So the first bit is, does it apply to you? How do we know it applies to you as well as to me? Because it is true that we were the claimants in the case, so it definitely applies to us. How do you know it applies to you? A couple of ways. First, read the judgment, because what this judgment was about was what trumps. Uber was saying, look, these are contracts. You mightn't like these contracts, but businesses run on contracts. Contract law is supreme. You can't throw out the contracts. We must honor the contracts, and contracts. Whereas the judge had a bit more discretion in the earlier hearings to say, no, I don't care what's written on the paper. I can see from the evidence that these guys were in a form of a employment relationship, albeit one that, believe it or not, still self-employed, but it's worker status. And so I can disregard the contracts. So what the whole Supreme Court battle was about was not really retesting all the evidence, but it was to decide, is it okay to throw out the contract and say no and reinterpret the contract as an employment relationship? Because you'd always been able to do that before under common law, what have you. And basically the Supreme Court came back yesterday and not only said that you could, but actually clarified that really you must. And what the judge was saying is that, look, the purpose of the legislation that gives us this worker status is to protect you and me. And you can't contract out of that. And he described what Uber was doing to try and get people out of that lawful protection. He called it a mischief. And so basically, in the long and short of it is, the worker status is the law of the land, and you can't enter into a contract that gets rid of that. And so that's why we know it applies to you, me, and everybody else, because it's the law of the land, and there's nothing we can agree with Uber on paper that gets rid of that. It's simply the law of the land. You can't contract out of it. That's how you know it applies to you, because the judge said it does, and the reason why he said it does is because it's the law of the land. You can't contract out, no matter what you agree with Uber. That's the first point. But then let's go more practically and say, well, Uber's still saying it only applies to a few people. So proof point number 2 is, if it only applied to a few people, Can we get whoever's on mute there? It's very loud. Have somebody. Okay. Somebody's car door is banging. Okay, all right, we're on mute again. Point number 2, that we know that it applies to everybody, is because oh, I lost my train of thought now. So we know it applies to everybody because it's the law of the land. Yes. The second point is that proof point is that if it was only a few of us, even 16, 20 people or whatever it was, 22 people, you know, the claims are a fair amount of money for us individually, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not huge. You know, I think Lee Day is saying they're £12,000. Why didn't they give each of the 22 £10,000 each? What would have that cost them? You know, a couple of £100,000 and they'd be done. But they spent millions and years fighting this. Why would they do that? They spent millions in fighting this because they knew what was at stake here, that it was going to apply to everybody. That's why they fought it all the way to the Supreme Court. They could have just settled this earlier if it was just for a few people. And proof point number 3, why we know this applies to everybody. Well, so my brain is mush after yesterday. Yeah, so we know it belongs to everybody because the law it says, and we know because Uber pushed it so hard, and then finally we know because there's a lot of law firms out there who are signing up drivers on a no-win, no-fee basis. That means they are shouldering the cost. We know one law firm has signed up 8,000 drivers already. That's already cost them a lot of money. So why would these firms be putting themselves at huge risk in signing a no-win, no-fee agreement with thousands, tens of thousands of drivers if they thought the law only applied to 16 people? So that's how you know. Those are the 3 reasons why you know that this law applies to everybody, because it just does. Sorry, the long-winded answer, and I got distracted in the middle of it. Back to you, Yassine.
Sorry, can I just add one more thing, basically, James, before we take it back to Yassine? I think the reason Uber also sent that message is to discourage drivers actually to put that claim. And, you know, if basically the law is there, if we don't put the claim, nobody actually is going to force Uber to make the difference. Back to you, Yassine.
Well, can I answer that for a little bit? Because I think maybe this is one we can kick around within the group. I think we should try to understand why would Uber go around saying that. It's going around saying that, but I think what you said, Hadi, is because they don't want people to now rush and make claims, right? That's one of the reasons. It would prefer to make the changes it needs to make in its own time, and that you forget what's happened in the past, and we just move forward. So you're right. That is one of the reasons. So there's a purposeful misinformation going on because they don't want people signing up for that. Somebody was telling me the PPE claims that after all the amount of advertising that was done with that, only about half the money that should ever have been distributed was ever distributed. So it is true. It's true. If you don't tell people and you don't encourage people to claim, then a lot of people just honestly never will. But that's one reason. The other reason we think why Uber is saying this is because Uber does not know what to do right now. I think honestly Uber was taken by surprise. It's clear they don't have a plan, because what they're saying, it doesn't amount to a plan. It's not sustainable. So I think perhaps they haven't, as a management team, either between London and Silicon Valley, they haven't really come to a great conclusion about this or what to do about it. And so I think they're just spinning and buying for time. And if you look at it, it's quite interesting. Dara Khosrowshahi is normally very quick, you know, on the to put a tweet out after they lost their license in London and when they got the license back and all of that stuff. Not a peep out of him. I'm going to check now again, but there was not a peep yesterday out of him. And in fact, across the industry, across the private hire industry, across all the apps, the silence is absolutely deafening at the moment. I think they're all in shock.
Yeah. Can I just add on that as well? The other thing I think what Uber is trying to do as well is discouraging and confusing their drivers. So they don't know what they're doing. It's like a PPE, what you just said as well. They've got the small prints. When you used to put a PPE and go in a bank and people used to claim, it always used to be in the small prints. But this landmark case that we won, you can clearly see there's a lot of law firm that already on this and working on a no-win, no-fee basis. And like you said, there is one law firm which is already signed up 8,000 drivers. So clearly, Uber doesn't know what they're doing, absolutely, and they're confused.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, I think this case, like, this was started back in 2015. Yeah, and I actually been organizing drivers since 2014. I remember going into Uber's office, and the problem was they underestimated us. They never thought, even them, Uber never thought this gonna become a big problem for them, and how drivers gonna win in Supreme Court. And I think throughout the process, they've been thinking that they would probably overturn it. But I think the main thing that they were reliant on is the fact we're going to get burnt out and we're going to suddenly hide away and we're not going to fight it all the way. I think that was the main thing they were banking on. But regardless, you know, we all stood our grounds together. We fought it all the way, and we are where we are, and we won at the Supreme Court. So obviously, this is not the end. We're going to go back to the tribunal and all that. So, you know, that is the main thing. But one of the main question that gets asked, James, is if a driver, regardless of who they join for this claim, do they get deactivated? So I'm going to ask that question to James to start off with, and then over to Hardy, because he's also one of the original claimants from the 22 who actually works for Uber. But James, over to you, please.
No. The answer is no. And I'll tell you why it's no. Because this is not personal, first of all. Yassine knows this. Over the years, we've gotten to know various Uber executives one way or another reasonably well. And I think there's probably a grudging admiration on either side. You know, I don't agree with what Uber does, although I think it can be a good company, but I just want to make sure that people are paid properly. But it's not personal, and they won't make it personal because it would be stupid to do so. The only way that this could be personal, or where you see something like this becoming personal at work, is in smaller firms where people know each other. You know, in local cab offices and so on, where then it is personal because we all know each other, and if there's a dispute with the boss, there's a dispute with the boss. But let's face it, we're managed by algorithm. This is not personal, and they don't take it personally. And anyway, so if they wanted to take it personally and they wanted to victimize you in some way, it'd be the world's stupidest thing to do, and it'd be futile. What would it achieve for them? Nothing. You know, you're one of tens of thousands of people out there working for Uber. So to muck you around, you know, there's no point to it. But thirdly, you must recognize, though, as a trade union member, you have protection if you're being victimized because of your trade union action, because you've asserted your rights. Well, then we'd have more remedy. We can bring a specific claim called trade union detriment. So we'd be able to sue them directly. Because you were a trade union member and because of your asserting your rights, you were victimized, then we would have additional claims against them. You would not have that if you're not a member of a trade union, though. It's important to be a member of a trade union, so you have that kind of protection. So number one, no, they won't do it. This is not personal. They don't take it personally, neither do we. Number two, if you have any concerns at all, you really should be in a trade union, because then you'd have protection, because they would be a very serious thing if you were victimized as a trade union member.
Thank you for that. So Hardy, just a question. When did you start working for Uber? What year?
I started working for Uber in April 2014.
Okay,
and
perfect.
I am one of the first. Among the people who actually, I mean, Yassine is the first person to start this actually campaign, but then I also came on board quite early, I think late 2014 or 15, and then the whole thing was organized. And up to today, I'm still talking to the initial drivers actually who started this campaign, and they were never actually dismissed. James himself was never dismissed, even when he actually did the. He went to court, and I remember even when we won at the tribunal, James actually wrote an email asking for holiday. Do you remember that email, James?
Yeah, indeed.
So, and just earlier on, I was talking to one of my colleagues, actually, Asad, who's also one of the claimants, and he's still basically on the platform. So as James explained, it's nothing personal, basically. We want things to be better for us, for everybody. I mean, I love working for Uber. I love and how it basically works, but I don't like to be exploited. So that's why I actually went to court regarding this thing. And it's important, as James said, if you are, scared or whatsoever that you might be dismissed, come and join ADCU, and so that you have union protection there. Back to you, Yasin.
Hadi. So just to confirm, so you started working in 2014. You are one of the claimants that joined the claim. Your name was mentioned, or you were one of the claimants in the tribunal in 2016. You were there present. You were there in the appeal tribunal with us. You were there in the High Court, yeah, and you're also one of the claimants again in the Supreme Court. And the reason why I'm saying it again, because we got over 200 drivers watching right now, yeah. And obviously, you'll get many more watch it later on. And it's quite important because we get this question a lot. So, Hadi, you're a full-time Uber driver and you rely on Uber as your sole income. And my question to you is, do you feel during this stage you were victimized by Uber in any ways, just because you were claimant? Yeah. Or they cut your app off, or they dismissed you just because you joined this case? Yeah. Just want you to say it, for everyone watching.
I'm quite happy to say, actually, I am still a full-time Uber driver. I mean, though at the moment I'm not full-time. Remember, because of the pandemic, there's not much of work. So, but I still put my app on and I wait, and there's not much of work. And I have been working with them since then. I've tried the other apps. I mean, I didn't like it much, so I'm stuck with the majority of the time. Because as you know, they have the 80% of the market. So I'm still working and I'm still an active Uber driver.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Okay, James, next big question. How does it change flexibility? And does it mean from tomorrow, Uber's just suddenly going to start running shifts? And does it mean that we become employees? Yeah, two questions, yeah? First, let's talk about the flexibility side first. And then the second question is, does it mean we're employees? Yeah, like explain the difference between LIMBY worker and the employee system.
Well, so just to follow up on the victimization thing, I just remember, there's a firm out there with 8,000 drivers signed up. So if Uber wants to start victimizing people, it's going to have a very long list of people to go through. So again, another reason not to worry. What happens flexibility? Well, the short answer is really nothing should change at all, because all Uber has to do, Uber's not making you an employee. There's not going to be PAYE. There's not going to be national insurance contributions. All we've done here is put a floor in your earnings to say, look, we must at least earn the minimum wage. If the sky is the limit beyond that, if you're able to make much more money, that's fantastic, but you must earn at least the minimum wage. There really shouldn't be any problem about flexibility, because Uber's we've always told us, is a technology company. It can manage supply and demand to optimize that. And we would just say that it hasn't optimized it very well, because it has flooded the market. Like there's probably about 40 to 50% excess capacity on the road. So people are being underutilized. So I think what we have to look at is the flexibility versus utilization thing. But that's maybe another question. But there's nothing inherent about the ruling that says flexibility has to leave tomorrow. Now, because there isn't anything in there that says that. But let's look at this another way, though. So what are people afraid of? That I might have to commit to shifts, and that I can now, I'd have to sign in, and, I can only work on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or so on and so on. The problem with that is Ubers would be on a slippery slope, because all we ever went for was worker status, which was the minimum wage protection, holiday pay. But the more additional control Uber exerts, like setting shifts and being kind of strict and acting more and more like a boss, if they're not careful, that'll tip them over into an employment relationship rather than a worker status relationship. And now it gets much more complicated, because they'd have to pay, what is it, an additional 17% with national insurance contributions. They'd have to start a pension scheme. Anybody working for longer than 2 years would have protection from dismissal. If they wanted to dismiss them, they'd have to pay them redundancy. That's not a rabbit hole Uber will want to go down. So I would say it'll be in Uber's interest to make sure they protect the flexibility. Now, all we have to do is look across the Atlantic to New York, where minimum wage protections have been running for a few years. In that market is one of the highest yielding markets anywhere in Uber's network. Look at the fares, look at them yourself. I mean, I haven't looked at them today, but I would say pull open your Uber app and look at the price per minute and mile in New York and compare it to somewhere like Atlanta, and you'll see the difference immediately. I'll look it up after I stop talking, but when I looked it up before, it was one of the most expensive fares, highest fares anywhere in America, and that's the one city in America where minimum wage is protected. Whereas somewhere like Atlanta at 60 cents, I mean, that's, Atlanta's not that much cheaper than London, but I mean, imagine what they could do to us here as they keep going. I mean, we're at 120 now. They'll just keep going, salami slicing it away down to nothing. So we have to protect that position. But there's nothing in there that would, in the ruling, that says flexibility has to go. If Uber starts to set shifts and become more rigid, they risk tipping over into employment relationship, which will cost them a lot more money. And thirdly, what I would say to you is look across to the experience in New York. They've got much higher fares, they're earning better, and the flexibility wasn't taken away from them. Uber didn't implement shifts there. It threatened it like crazy during that campaign. But they had to introduce minimum wage, and it's fine. Nobody's working shifts. It's exact same flexibilities we have today.
Sorry about that, yeah, James. That's true. So one of the main thing, another question I want to clarify here, because a lot of people, like, let's say the way the employment law works, they're a bit funny. Yeah. So, for example, let's say you stopped working for Uber for, let's say, 12 weeks, or let's say you got dismissed from or kicked off the platform or deactivated or whatever word you want to use, let's say last year, and you never filed a claim. Those people are not able to claim. You have a tight window, which is 90 days. So I still see a lot of drivers asking, like people that got deactivated. For those people, what you need to do is there's a link being posted on here. On the chat section, if you look there, it's gonna there's a link for Workers Info Exchange, which is another Workers Info Exchange. So what we're doing is we're looking at data, and James will talk about that later on. So if you've been unfairly deactivated, and you want to look at the way you don't know why you got deactivated, go on to that link that I just posted in the chat, and you could register for your data. But as it stands, the claim is for people that work, like prior to the 3-month period, the 90 days window. Yeah. What is the next question, James?
I don't have the list of questions. I think maybe Kirsty has.
Yeah. Actually, let's bring in Kirsty. Sorry. I mean, I'm gonna Kirsty is, she's amazing. Yeah, and a lot of people, like, we're in an industry which is mainly male, and Kirsty is one of the unique fighter, and she's been with us for many years. She's regular. You probably, like, drivers probably seen her at our demos, even though we don't see her on these social media platforms. So I just want to say thank you again to Kirsty for coming on today. But But I think it would be good to hear from you. And if you could just yeah, and then James could answer your questions. Yeah.
Sorry, I've got to leave for 1 second. My kids just had an accident in the kitchen. Be with me back in 1 minute, okay? Sorry about that.
All
Are
right.
you for real?
That tells you that she's a family.
Okay.
She's family
Okay, so
basically.
let's go over to Mehmed. Yeah. Mehmed, mashallah, he's again another active brother that we have. Yeah. And again, like all the people here, it's just I'm glad to be able to be here with all of you guys today. Like you were part of our success and being with us. Yeah. Now Mehmed is very active within the Turkish community, so I'm just gonna get him to ask a few questions. And at the same time, I want to use this opportunity for Mehmed to, because we got a few Turkish guys that don't speak good English. Listen, if you just you know, feel free to talk in Turkish for a minute or 2 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Arkadaşlar selam. Bu şeyde grupta sizler için olan son mahkeme kararını değerlendiriyoruz ve burada yapılması gerekenleri James ve Yasin kardeşimiz anlatıyorlar. Bu sebepten dolayı lütfen dikkatlice dinleyin. İngilizcesini anlayamadığınız yerde bana sorabilirsiniz. Ben yine grupta özet olarak burada konuşulanların hepsini yazacağım size anlamanız için. Panik yapmayalım. Her şey güzeline oluruna varacak. Öyle görünüyor. Yani güneş dağın arkasından görünmeye başladı. Bu bakımdan bazı arkadaşlarımız yanlış yorumlar, yanlış düşüncelere kapılıyorlar. Self-employment bitiyor mu? Ya da biz employed mi olacağız? Maaşlı elemanları mı olacağız? Hayır. Böyle bir şey kesinlikle yok. Sadece bize minimum wage'i ödemesi gerekiyor Uber'in. Bu şeyde çalıştığımız, logon yaptığımız saat süresince. Yani 3 saat, 5 saat dolaşıp da 3 poundla eve gidiyoruz. Ondan sonra Uber bir iş yapıyorsun. 15 pound'lık, 20 pound'lık yarısını paranın alıyor falan. Yani bu dengeyi sağlaması gerekiyor Uber'in. Tek taraflı anlaşma imzaladığını söyledi mahkeme. Ve bunun self-employment kurallarına göre aykırı olduğunu söyledi. Ve aynı zamanda mahkeme kararında söylediği Uber'in şoförlere hiç söz hakkı vermediği anlaşma esnasında ve bütün kuralları kendi koyduğu, tek taraflı olduğu. Bunların şimdi üstesinden geleceğiz. Teker teker hepsiyle çalışacağız ve gerekirse mahkeme yoluyla, gerekirse toplu müracaatlar yoluyla hakkımız olan parayı alacağız. Bazı arkadaşlar diyor minimum wage'e mi çalışacağız? Hayır, öyle bir şey kesinlikle yok. Sadece minimum wage tabanı, kazanmamız gereken paranın tabanı. Bu anlamda minimum wage var ortada. Yani Uber bize minimum wage ödemeyecek bundan sonra. Yani bunu da yanlış anlamayalım. Ama yine bu videoyu izlemeye devam edin. Ben bu videonun size özetini bilahare şey olarak, yazılı olarak gruptan tekrar ileteceğim. Hepinize iyi günler. Kolay gelsin. Okay, Yasin. I'm okay. I explain everything to them.
Yeah, that's fine. What's the question for James? You got any question that you want to ask James or me while you're here?
I missed some of the conversations, so I just don't want to interrupt. But the Kirsty's questions were the main questions anyway, you know. So if as well as they have clarified, you know, everybody will be probably have a clear idea what's happening now, next, you know, tomorrow and 2 months time or 2 years time, you know. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. No, sorry. I'm glad, Mehmed. Thank you very much for doing that. And it's important because, you know, like we have a lot of communities and different communities, and it's important to be able to communicate and explain to everyone, not just have Uber with their PR machine. And at the end of the day, this is the driver community. This is all of us. Yeah. Zamir, the Heathrow rep, over to you, man.
Good evening, everyone. The only question I've got a few questions, but the only most question I've got today is, can anyone claim, regardless of how long they have been with Uber, number one, and can Uber actually take them off the platform? Because lots of drivers have actually called support and they've been told that, no, you're not part of it. It's only the main claimants That's the judgment says. So lots of drivers they've been told all sorts of messages, and also can someone, you or James, clarify all this stuff going on social media, please?
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm glad.
rumors going left, right, and center.
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that, and a lot of people keep asking that question whether this is just for the 22 drivers and that's it, and we're all gonna walk away with £1,000,000. And I just want to clarify that I haven't received £1,000,000, nor has James throughout the process. And secondly, the claim was started back in the days with those drivers, but I think James is more. Is a better person to explain this, on the ruling and why the number 22 keeps saying. But I think he did early on, but just for the audience listening right now, James, if you could just say that again, because I see that again and again, the same kind of messages, and
Sorry, what's the 22? What's the significance?
The question mainly is look, Uber keeps spinning it as, look, the people that were part of this claim.
The 22 claimants, yeah.
It only applies to them. At the same time, the driver community, even though people knew that they were about this case, we got Anupon watching. Anupon is fully aware that and was with us at different stages. But the question is, some of the drivers been sitting on the fence, and they're worried that they now lost out because it's just me and you and all us guys, and they weren't able to benefit. And whether let's say that is the case, I mean, you got to understand, it's not our fault if you did not join. Every time we win, we were sending out the same message as today. So technically speaking, what we're saying today, we said this the last time and the time before and the time before and the time before. But I just James, so if you could just say that again,
So it most definitely applies to everybody. But if you ask Uber to, where can you get your money, they're going to say no. Of course they are, and there's a few reasons for that. Number one, I think the ruling came as a shock for them, and they haven't figured out how to implement this or what they're going to do or how they're going to do it. So they need some time. And number two, as I explained, if they're whatever they do here, they prefer to do it going forward, and they'd forget everybody. They would like everybody to forget about the past, because the past is going to cost them a lot of money. So what people are going to have to do is lawyer up for the past to get what's owed to you. And Uber, Uber's going to say you're not owed anything, but that's what you'll have to do to get what's in the past, because you're entitled to it. And ultimately, I think what'll happen is Uber will try to come and reach a settlement with those who are involved and have some legal representation and claim. Uber will seek to settle them, because the courts are not going to want 45,000 drivers coming through, 45,000 individual drivers coming through the courts with claims. It just wouldn't be able to handle it. So that's what's going to have to happen. So two things have to happen. Uber has to accept their new reality, and some point next week or the week after, it'll start to do that. It will want everybody to forget about what money is owed from the past. We'll all have to lawyer up, and at some point, when there's enough pressure on Uber and there's enough bargaining power, Uber will buckle and they will want to settle with everybody. That's usually how these things go. I want to just go back on the point about the flexibility, though, and what's going to happen in the future. There's two things I want to say about that. Firstly, the app never stops changing anyway. Look what happened during the pandemic. The fixed pricing model was brought in. That's an effective pay cut in the middle of the pandemic. So the conditions in the app are changing all the time, and I or nobody here can predict what changes Uber will make as a result of this. It probably will make some. It'll probably make changes it was going to make anyway, but it'll blame this for that. So there'll be lots of misinformation going backwards and forwards. But all you need to know is that Uber doesn't have to do anything in order to pay us all out. If it chooses to do something, it may choose to do something. But this is all the more reason why we should now be in a union, because what we need to do is we need to say, Uber, you need to pay up what's due now, but we also need to negotiate about what happens next to make sure it's good for everybody. So join a union. And then finally, another reason to join the union is TfL are just absolutely hammering drivers at the moment. because it needs to be seen to police Uber's platform. So for those reasons, join a union so you can be part of negotiating a better future. We can reclaim the past, what money is due, and you have the protection against somebody like TfL.
Thank you for that, James. One of the main,
also, Yassine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Furthermore, I actually read something about Dr. Alex Wood of the Internet Institute from of the gig economy, actually from the Oxford University. And it's very important what he said. I don't know, James, if you read this. He said basically, there is nothing to police this. And Uber will not change, at least the drivers, 40,000 drivers on Uber's platform, if they all basically go and make a claim, then things will start changing. So it's up to us basically to come and join the union and start making the changes and putting our claims forward. Otherwise, nothing will change.
Yeah. So just to, because I could see a few comments and the comments are coming fast. Yeah. Just like people watching right now, if you want to join us, the link is actually scrolling on the screen right underneath you, www.adcu.org.uk/joins. Yeah, that's the link to join the union. Yeah. The next biggest question we get, James, is how does this have impact like on Addison Lee, Ola, Bolt, and other operators? Yeah.
Well, Addison Lee have a big problem because they have a case just like ours, and it was stayed pending the outcome of this case. Am I frozen?
No,
can you hear me? Okay. All right. The screen was a little frozen. So that case was stayed pending the outcome of this case, and now the outcome of this case is very clear. I would say Addison Lee's business model is even more bound by this ruling than even Uber's, because it was an Addison Lee. These guys were definitely far more closely managed than Uber drivers are. So this, those Addison Lee drivers will absolutely benefit from this ruling. And it's going to be, it's going to be more expensive for Addison Lee because they run their own vehicles and so on. So I would even say those Addison Lee drivers may already be well beyond worker status into full employment status. So it'll be quite a heavy impact on Addison Lee. With regard to the other apps, well, there's no doubt they're all operating the same business model. So I unless you can see any difference between the way Uber operates and the others, you don't really have much more latitude or control over your work at Ola than you do, say, at Uber. So it's going to be the same. The only complicating factor is about the whole multi-apping situation. So it's clear that when you're driving a passenger around or you're en route, you're a worker. It's also true that you're a worker during waiting time. What's less clear is if you're a worker on multiple apps. That's something the lower courts will have to decide again. They may decide that if I'm 80% of my time on Uber and 20% on somebody else, they may prorate at that. But I'm just speculating about how they'll handle that. But it's clear it's working time. How it's apportioned in a multi-apping situation is something that the courts will have to decide in the future.
Yeah, so thank you, James. So, Zamir, I'll let you ask the next question.
Thank you, Yassine. The one question I've got asked quite a lot, actually. Even few people just text and call me right now. The thing is here, they have been told, which I know is a fabrication of Uber, James will clarify that don't listen to the unions because the unions are doing that to benefit for themselves. So could we just please clarify all these rumors online and beyond that that's not the case?
James?
Well, I mean, Yassine is driving around in a Porsche 911, and no, there's no. This has actually got nothing at all to do with that. In fact, what people need to understand is that we didn't go out there to fight for new rights. We only just simply clarified what was already the case, That's all. This has been the law for a long time. Uber hasn't obeyed the law. We all have to obey the law. We all have to pay taxes. We all have to obey the law, and that's all that's happened here. Is that we haven't fought for new rights. We haven't fought to destroy the present. We've just simply clarified that this is the law and that has to be protected. Now, are we better off or not? Is the question. I mean, I just looking really quick at fares. So New York, where the minimum wage is in place, they have a run-in fare. I mean, some of the taxi cab apps have a run-in fare. Do you imagine that, having a run-in fare? Run-in fare is your en route time. They have a run-in fare, $2.51 per mile to pickup, which is quite extraordinary as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking at this Connect, $2.51 a mile. Is that right? Yeah, $2.50 a mile, $8 minimum fare. That's starting to look a bit more healthy as far as I'm concerned, right? But if we, compare that to another city, let's see, Atlanta or somewhere like that, you're going to see a big difference. Now, the reason I bring this up is because I was reading a Goldman Sachs research report about Uber, and they had a lot of shares in Uber, and they were talking about Uber from an investment perspective, and they were talking about the need for Uber drivers, Uber to get off the so-called sugar rush of driver pay. If you look at Uber's investor reports, that's all they're talking about, is how they can increase what they say they'll increase their take. In other words, their greater take of the fare than they already have. And they think that the drivers are already getting too much of that share. So this is the incredible downward pressure is going to be on drivers going forward, because they want to reduce incentives. They want to have a bigger share of everything. They want you earning less. That's what this fixed fare is about. It's about Uber getting more and more and more and more and more. And there's still a lot. You think you can't go lower in London. I can assure you can. And so I think this isn't really just about unions. It's just about what kind of a future you're going to have if you don't put a floor in the market and say, listen, you can do what you like, but as long as everybody earns minimum wage. And that's what this is about. It's not about unions. It's about putting a floor in the market, making sure everybody earns a decent living.
I'm glad you said that, because I actually come into this industry back in 2006. This is well before we had any apps, Uber, Ola. They all come into the market well afterwards. And just to give you an example, like the average fare from, like we're talking about Heathrow to central London was about 75 pounds. Yeah. And right now you've seen that drop to what, 25 pounds, 30 pounds. You're lucky if you get 40 pounds, So the industry is going downhill and downhill every day. Yeah. Like something had to be done, because if we didn't do anything, what we would have seen is Uber becoming more and more aggressive, meaning they'll overflood the platform with drivers. And in order to attract more and more customers, they'll make the fares cheaper and cheaper. And we already seen drivers just the last few days. We had drivers complaining about these fixed fares and everything. So this is like, if you want to fix that, then this is the way to fix it. So at the end of the day, as James said, this puts the floor in the market. It is what it is. But is there any? How do you get? Was it you? No, Charlie. Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
Yes, and all I'd like to say is, if a company like Uber adapts a good culture, I said basically having a recognized trade union in place, because this is what big firms normally do. Firms like Royal Bank of Scotland or NatWest, where they employ over 10,000 or 15,000, 20,000 employees. They've got a recognized trade union in place. So like app drivers and courier union could actually be a recognized trade union where we could try and put things in place and avoid going into all these sort of stuff. So I think that would be a really delighted move, where we could work with these operators along with Transport of London and stuff, and making sure that all the health and safety, all the workers' rights are in place. And the way we do that is basically having members on board. having better bargaining power as well. So I think if a really good move Uber really wants to do is probably putting a recognized trade union in place and recognizing these people and appreciating. So that's probably something they should consider in the near future.
Yeah, no, that's fine. But
James, I have a question for you and Yassine. I mean, Dave is asking: will TfL get involved, or will they keep out of it?
Well, so TfL has always kept out of this. You know, we've always pushed on TfL that they need to make worker rights a condition of license, that they need to do a lot more to look at this issue. There was a report done a few years ago through us. Frank Field was the MP at the time, wrote a report called Sweated Labour, and he basically said that we were working in sweatshop conditions in London. And, you know, on the back of that, there was a London Assembly resolution that worker rights should be a condition of Uber's license, and that was passed 16-1. The only person who voted against it was Sean Bailey, who's currently running for mayor for the Conservatives. So, potentially not the best friend for Uber drivers. But TfL didn't do anything about it. And about 2 years ago, they wrote a strategy paper where they talked about good work, but it was mostly kind of voluntary. You know that, you know, lip service, Uber and the others might say, oh, you know. They might assure TfL that they're treating us really nicely. But TfL hasn't wanted to do anything about this. There was something in this judgment yesterday that will be extremely worrying for TfL. And that is, you know, Uber says this only applies to 18 people. This is another reason why this applies to everybody. This only applies to 16 people. It was when the app was, you know, such and such a few years ago. The app has completely changed now, and so the way the business model works now would be completely compliant and so on. But the judge has said in that, he says that Uber's model, the current model, the sort of contracting shenanigans that goes on, the judge, on behalf of the bench, said that, in his opinion, that wouldn't comply with the 1998 Private Hire Vehicle London Act, which governs, you know, TfL. In other words, the way Uber's operating at the moment, he doesn't think. The judge said, he was not convinced it was compliant with TfL regulations. This is very embarrassing for TfL. They've taken Uber's license twice. We've told them that they needed to make worker rights a condition of license of concern. They wouldn't listen to us. And now the judge is sort of saying to him, well, the way Uber set this thing up with their drivers, we don't think it could be compliant with the regulations. Terribly embarrassing for TfL. So I think TfL is now dragged into this. They probably, again, like Uber, caught by surprise. Something interesting the mayor said was that, you know, they would be swiftly respond on anything. So, you know, the mayor's never said anything like that before. Why would he, you know, why would he want to respond swiftly now? It's because I think they know there is a bit of a problem in that judgment. That is, you know, it's a terrible question for TfL. Like, why? So effectively, the judge is saying he's not happy that the way Uber has operated since 2012 is illegal. Not great. So I think TfL is going to have to get involved in this somehow, but they've made a mess of it so far.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So the next thing is like, just again, I'm just going to recap this for the drivers watching and some of you that just joined now. Yeah, I think we all just need to calm down. Over the next few days, we're going to do more and more live sessions, and hopefully over the coming days, we'll have a solicitor who's an expert and who could, you know, like explain and talk a bit more in detail about this claim. Yeah. So, you know, so I see a lot of those comments, but we'll come back to that. But the main thing is, and this is the main question we get, James. Yeah. When we won in 2016, I still remember like we were getting loads of calls from drivers saying, damn, Uber's going to shut down and they're going to leave the next day. They're going to leave London or the UK. Yeah. And funny enough, like even though that's the message that was going around, Uber has been around since, and they fought us all the way to the Supreme Court. What's the likely of Uber like Monday, tomorrow, disappearing?
Well, they threatened to do that. They threatened to do that in New York. Anytime that they, something doesn't go the way they want it to go, they threaten to pull out. They threaten to hold the communities where we're working hostage. And I just don't think that that's the way to do business. And I think they've cried wolf many times. I mean, it's a bit like that Frank Sinatra song. If you can't make it here, you can't make it anywhere. I mean, this is London's a mega city in Europe. If you can't operate in London and serve a market the size of London, then I don't know what's. You rethink. I don't know where you go, what you're going to do. So I wouldn't believe that. I think the opportunity is too great in London, but it will need to change. And there's no reason why it can't make a very good living if it changes. But the problem for Uber is that Uber wants to have its cake and eat it. It wants to continue to operate the way it's always continued to operate. It doesn't want to accept the responsibilities, and it wants to threaten to leave if it is made to do so. I think why don't just grow up, accept reality, make the changes you need to make, increase the fares, gradually reduce the number of people that you're ramping up onto the platform. TfL should do that anyway. We've said that the rate of licensing growth in London has been too great. Let's get to the point where everybody can make a fair living. It's not too much to ask. It'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's stupid, and I'm surprised that drivers are like messaging and worried that Uber's going to disappear and they've lost their job. And this has been going on because, you will be able to work. I mean, nothing changes, and all this stuff that we're talking about today is not going to happen overnight. Come on, we only won on Friday, and this is a battle that we've been fighting for 6 years. So nothing's going to change overnight. But the next main question again, and I know we discussed it briefly, yeah. So Uber's sending out this survey, yeah, to drivers, James, yeah. What should they be doing with that?
Put it in the bin. That's what I would do with it.
Do they need to fill it in so Uber could pay them more? Or what's the
put it in, or fill it up and send them back Duff data or whatever. I mean, it's just whatever you give them, will be used not to serve Uber shareholders and preserve the big bonuses of Dara Khosrowshahi and all these executives. What are they going to discover from taking a survey from you that they don't know already? That you're not paid enough, or you'd like to be paid a bit more? I mean, sure, they know how much work you've done and how you've earned. What else do they need to know? This is all nonsense. I mean, I said this yesterday. I said, which I found this is a little insulting, is that they're going to go on a nationwide, consultation process to find out what the drivers really want. Well, we don't have the choice to obey the law. You have to obey the law. That's not a matter of opinion or preference. Obey the law and then ask us what we want. Pay us right, and then I'll tell you what else I want once you've given me that. How about that then?
Yeah, that's fine. Charlene?
Yep.
Or Hadi or Zamir, anyone, if you want to ask anything else?
I mean, there was a question popping up from. Go ahead.
Okay. Actually, James, before we go forward, because I see Tom posted a comment early on, and it's just gone out of my. I lost it, yeah. But what was our demand from Uber? Forget this workers' status for a second, yeah. What have we always been demanding? We've done so many protests. What has our demand from Uber been? And we had 4 or 5 key points demand. What were they? Just want to
Well, we wanted £2 a mile. We wanted 15% commission. I'd say we'd want better on commission right now in the middle of the pandemic. Those were the two main points. But basically, we wanted that fare structure overhauled, £2 a mile, 15% commission.
Yeah, that's what. So right now, what is it? I think minimum fare.
Sorry, we wanted the minimum wage protection because the problem is it's a belt and braces problem. you give with one hand and take with the other. You know what I mean? So there's no point in having a £2 fare minimum if they then, you know, either don't give you the work or take a higher commission out of it. So that's why we wanted all of those things. So we wanted the minimum wage guarantee, we wanted £2 a mile, we wanted 15% commission,
Yeah,
but we also wanted to be guaranteed earnings floor.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's what we've been fighting. It's nothing. So in the past year, so we were saying £2. This was national, £2 a mile, 15% commission. You know, unfair dismissal, because we were getting a lot of drivers getting kicked off the platform without the right to challenge. And there's probably a lot of people watching today, and the drivers watching must know a driver that got terminated or suspended, you know, just because the customer made a fake complaint against them or because the rating dropped. And recently we started seeing a lot of drivers get deactivated for fraudulent activities and all that kind of stuff, just to, you know, get away from all this employment liability. But the point is, you have no protection. Forget this case for a second. Like, every single driver watching this, what guarantee you have that Uber won't just terminate your app tomorrow without a reason, just because a customer made a complaint? You know, so this is why we do need protection. Yeah. And this case is quite important. So a lot of drivers keep posting the comment about how they joined the case. So, you know, like, a lot more, we're going to communicate, especially our members. We'll be sending out email. You'll get a lot more information about what's happening and how to join the case. But just be patient, guys. Yeah. Is there anything else, James, you want to add? Because we've been on for an hour. Charlene or Zamir or anyone else that want to add, because I want to come back again tomorrow and have another live session, or the day after, so we got something happening.
Yeah, there's nothing else for me to add. My deepest gratitude to everybody. You know, we had a great legal team. We had all that great stuff, but you know, if we didn't have the support and solidarity of all our members, you know, this journey wouldn't have been possible or bearable. It was only because we all did it together. So thank you for that, and thank you for allowing me to be part of that journey. It's been a great honor, and I think we'll do something very special. But you know, I think it's very important, though. You know, things are in flux. Uber launched a big paper last week. You might have seen it, a white paper where they're demanding a change in regulation all over Europe, including the UK. So Uber is going to put a lot of pressure on the politicians now, because this law is now being enforced. They don't like this law. They would like another law. So that will be the effort now. But we've still so much more to fight for. We have to fight for protection from unfair dismissal. I see people being slung off. That's one of the biggest pain points. It's like, my message would be sometimes, like, let's not worry too much about the status of whether you're employed or self-employed or something in the middle, which is what we are, but think about what you need. And I think what drivers need at the moment is definitely protection from this getting slung off the platform for no reason, because the knock-on effect of that is now you have a fitness review with TfL, and then we have all that to deal with. You know, there's a lot of problems there that we need to tackle, and you know, and drivers need defence and they need protection. And they need legal support, and we're well set up to handle that. We had a great victory in Scotland this week, where we served a driver's license from the council, and many others. We had a great a couple of really good wins also this week with TfL. We tackled the airport working conditions at Heathrow, and we're still going to continue with that. But there's an awful lot more to fight for, you know. And if we don't like work and fight together, then you know, we'll backslide off this victory, and we'll nothing will change. The law will have been clarified, but the law still won't be obeyed. You know, we need to keep pushing forward now. We have the wind at our back. We've got them by the tail. We've got to keep them running. You know, so please join the union, stay involved. Let's make the best of this opportunity to get a fairer and better deal for drivers, and keep working for that.
Oh, guys, sorry about this, because it's been quite long, and I'm exhausted. It's a busy day for myself. Even James looks tired, man. You can see from his eyes.
Knackered.
And all you guys, yeah. So we're gonna end, but bear in mind, we're here.
Can I just add one more thing before you end, please, Yasin? Can we actually don't forget our colleague Gabriela, who was actually murdered on Wednesday?
Yeah.
And can you tell me what Union has done for him so far, and what Union planning to do for him on Wednesday?
So basically, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that. So on Wednesday at 2 p.m., we're gonna be doing a visual outside Bolt head office or their hub, which is in Chiswick. Yeah. So the link is posted there in the group. If every driver could share this, please, to your network, and hopefully, I'm hoping that the drivers, the way they were all, want to know about this claim and they want to know how to claim this compensation and what the solicitor fees is. I hope the drivers are motivated the same way to be there in solidarity to support these guys for the driver that passed away. As a union, we, the National Executive Committee of ADCU, we donated £500 for the GoFundMe. And over the coming days, we're pushing Bolt, the mayor, and also Transport for London. So this is like, if you listen to the last Facebook Live me and James done, we did talk about it. So unfortunately, last 2 days, we were busy with the Uber case. But on Wednesday, we're gonna do a rally. So I will be there, James will be there, Hardy will be there, Mehmed will be there, the mayor will be there. So we're gonna be there. And all you guys watching and posting that comment today, Onupon, Soman, all you guys, yeah. Hopefully we see you there and spread the message, because this is he was one of us. We're a drivers community. That could be me murdered tomorrow. That could be you murdered tomorrow. And unfortunately,
that's what I exactly said to my group. I said it can be your car, these criminals, in. So exactly, I impressed that one to my group,
Yeah. So the point is, look, we all need to do what we can, yeah. And it's about solidarity. We need to show Bolt the message, because I think we have got Uber, and we're going to start seeing. I'm hopeful that we're going to start seeing changes very soon. But Bolt have been getting away with it in the background. If you look at a lot of passengers or customers and the riders and the way they keep dismissing drivers, so that driver potentially might have not wanted to do that job, but he done the job because he was worried about how Bolt's gonna probably stop giving him job. We don't know. But the point was, he did not have that flexibility of being able to cancel that job. Yeah. Because of the way the system works and the model works and all that stuff. Yeah. So, but anyway, so if you could turn up with a candle, 2 p.m. In Chiswick outside Bolt. It's just going to be a half an hour. It's a silence visual, so we'll be there. So, guys, thank you. Yeah. Is there anything else now, James, or could we end it now?
I think we can end it. Just thank you very much to you this week, and there's a lot more to talk about. We're always here for you, so you can shoot us a message. You have the union contacts, and yes, and as Yassine mentioned, there are, everybody's got a lot of questions right now, and sometimes when there are a lot of questions and not enough answers, that creates anxiety. But I'd say, just for now, try not to be anxious. Try to be jubilant and enjoy this moment. It's been a long time coming, and it, the thing sometimes about not having all the answers, yeah, it's anxiety because people worry, what's going to happen next. But there's also excitement about what's going to happen next, and that's what I'm really optimistic about. We keep together, we keep fighting. We've won this one. We keep push pressure on. Let's win some more, and let's show our power. We've already showed massive power yesterday. So please understand there won't always be straight answers immediately for these things, but I know things are going to get better now, and we can make it so if we work together.
So another thing to you guys, like we got regional reps in each city. Try to speak to them first, yeah. Because they're all there. Everyone knows we're all together. So hopefully get everyone to join the union. Yeah. We were able to beat Uber. And it's us guys, ADCU. Yeah, we were the guys that were able to beat Uber. So you're gonna see these messages, everyone claiming to win Uber, everyone's claiming to be representing, but we're the real people. Yeah, so it's your choice. You can come up here and then post comments and whatever, but if you really want to be part of the team, and if you really like what we're doing, if you really want to support us, then the way to show that is by being a member of our union. And I see a lot of people here that are good friends of mine, yeah, but they're not still members, So if like the way to show solidarity and the way to show that you like what we're doing is to be a member, yeah, and not just that. Like if there's a problem, we're there to help you. We're there to as Jay mentioned earlier on. There's so many stuff that we've done for drivers, yeah. But anyway, guys, yeah, thank you for watching. And just stay, like on the Facebook page, we'll probably be there again tomorrow or the day after. But we're definitely not gone. We're still here, and you'll hear more and more from us over the coming days. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.